Welcome back to College Corner. It's been a long offseason since March Madness, and college hoops close things out very, very hot. But we get into the college football season. It's week 1. I've got 4 bets. You have football Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. It's great to have football back. I've got 4 plays for you guys, including a player prop and then 3 sides. And we're starting on Thursday. Guys, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to drop a like. Let me know that you enjoy this type of content. That subscribe button will have weekly content for you and picks throughout the college football season and a little bit more non-betting stuff as we get throughout the year. But for week 1, we're starting on Thursday night. I've got a player prop for you, and it is in the Minnesota-Nebraska game. It is Brevin Spanford over 27.5 receiving yards. So this is a tight end that was one of the best in college football last season and was draft eligible, but decided to come back to Minnesota, and he led the team with 40 receptions. This was an offense that was absolutely brutal to watch. This was a tough team to watch, Minnesota, last year under Kirk Ciarrocca. But for Brevin Spanford, actually, with the help of Props.cash, if you guys aren't using Props.cash this season, I'll include that link down below in the description. Awesome place to be able to bet college football player props. College basketball we did last year, the NFL, you name it, they have it over there to help you with player prop data. If you use promo code OwnersBox, you're going to get 25% off your first month. But with the info Props.cash, I was able to find that even with this offense struggling the way it did, he actually cleared this number in 7 of his last 10 games to close of the season, including a big one there against Wisconsin in their last regular season game. So, like I mentioned, this was the 5th lowest volume passing offense last season. They were very tough to watch because they ran the football a ton with Mo Ibrahim. He is now gone. And like I mentioned, Kirk Ciarrocca, the offensive coordinator, is now gone as well. So they only averaged 21.3 passing attempts per game, which was 127th in the country. Like I said, Mo Ibrahim is gone. And then losing Kirk Ciarrocca, this offense is going to change a little bit. They're going to be less reliant on the run, and they bring in their new quarterback who played a little bit last year in Ethan Kaliakmanis. And the program has been talking about this guy all offseason, very high on him, and their belief is he's the most talented passer that they've had in the PJ Fleck era. And I'm reading a ton of stuff, listening to a ton of stuff when I'm trying to make these bets in the early parts of the season, because I think if you can get a lot of this under the radar information, it can really help you. Ryan Burns from Gopher Illustrated for 24/7 Sports has been consistently beating the drum on this team being the highest passing volume offense in the Fleck era as well. Now, the bar isn't high. This team's going to run the ball a ton, but the highest they've had in a season on average is 26.6 passing attempts per game, so that's about 5+ more. Ryan Burns thinks that this will be more in the 28 pass attempts per game. So if we're going to get 7 more pass attempts per game from this offense, and we're looking at a guy like Spanford, who cleared this number in 7 of his last 10 games, I expect even more opportunity for him with the passing volume increasing and leaning a little bit more on the pass game because the offensive line loses its parts, and we already mentioned the Mo Ibrahim loss. Nebraska against the pass last year wasn't great, 79th in EPA per pass attempt, 227 pass yards per game. And I think for Nebraska, they make some changes in the linebacker core, lose a few pieces, and that's where Spanford can be that matchup nightmare, is over the middle of the field against those linebackers. So I like him to go over his receiving yards. If you watch this video early, hopefully you're able to catch it, and we start the week 1-0. Next up, I think the biggest game on Saturday, North Carolina, South Carolina. I like UNC. Take them on the money line. Pay a little bit of the juice here, get it to -135 or so. If you get anything higher, I'm fine with taking the -2, -2.5. South Carolina is a team I already talked about actually on our on Twitter Spaces when we talked about some of the preseason futures. I like South Carolina's win total under, and I think they lose this game at home. They rank 102nd in returning production, lose a lot on offense, even more on defense. Now Spencer Rattler is back. He's got his favorite receiver in Antoine Wells Jr. back. A lot of people will see that and expect this team to maintain its level of play. That will not be the case. The offensive line is a major concern, and when I'm betting on college football, I'm paying attention to the trenches. They lose both of their tackles. Their left tackle, Jalen Nichols, actually was to a spring injury, so they don't even really get the benefit of being able to make an addition through the portal. They also lose their center and their right guards. That's 4 of their 5 starters gone. And they'll be asking some non-tackles and potentially some freshmen to step in at these spots, at the tackle spots, was a huge concern. And if there's any injuries, we're looking at some true freshmen having to play. They also on defense saw both of their defensive ends, their top defensive ends, transfer out. They lose Cam Smith and Darius Rush, who were both picks in the first 4 rounds of the NFL draft in the secondary. And there's some concerns with the depth there as well. So this was a really good pass defense last year that loses a ton, and they were brutal against the run. And you get this UNC team that will continue to be a high-powered offense with Drake May at the helm, one of the best quarterbacks in college football, a Heisman Trophy favorite. He was elite if he was given a clean pocket last year, and he was under pressure a fair bit too much. But I don't expect the South Carolina front four to be able to be as productive as they were last season. May had a 76% completion percentage, 9.3 yards per attempt, and a passer rating of 125.3 under a clean pocket. Some of the best numbers at all those spots in the entire nation. He loses Josh Downs, but they get Devontae Walker out of Kent State. They get Nate McCollum out of Georgia Tech, who can definitely step in for this team offensively. On the defensive side, that's where UNC was absolutely terrible. 102nd in pressure rate, 130th of 131 teams in sack rate. But we mentioned the South Carolina team losing a lot when it comes to that from that offensive line in protection, and some real concerns there. UNC built out some depth in the defensive line, have a lot of guys they can rotate in and stay fresh. I think they take advantage of a really undermanned unit for South Carolina on the offensive line, be able to generate some pressure and have some success on defense. So I like UNC to go on the road here with Drake May and really take it to this Gamecocks team. These last two games, these will be on the TV, breaking out the second TV for the night slate. South Alabama +7 against Tulane, making sure you're shopping, getting that best number. There are books that have 7 out here as the recording of this video. Make sure you get it. A lot of people are going to be excited about this Tulane team. Had a huge year last season, beat USC in, was it the Fiesta Bowl? Regardless, in their bowl game, in a major comeback. They have Michael Pratt back. A lot of people will generally know a ton about this Tulane team off the year they had last year and bet Tulane accordingly. But South Alabama is a very, very good team out of the Conference USA. South Alabama is 13th in returning production, and especially so on defense. They were 5th this year in returning production on defense. 82% of their production is back. That's what I pay attention to in week one, is returning production. We see we'd be able to take on what this team built off of last year and be able to build on top of it with a lot of guys familiar with the scheme and their assignments. Fantastic defense too. All those guys back in the defense was really good. 13th in EPA per rush, 39th in EPA per pass. So very good against the run. Tulane, they return quite a bit too. 31st overall in returning production, but they lose Tajay Spears. And when you look at returning production, they don't put a lot of weight into the running back position. And Spears was maybe the best back in all of college football last year, other than maybe a Bijan Robinson, I would say. But I think he's a significant loss for this team. He averaged 113 yards per game. He was able to kind of be productive behind this offensive line, regardless of how they blocked. He was 9th in yards after contact per attempt. And this is a team that liked to run the ball a lot, even with Michael Pratt. I think Tajay Spears' loss is more important than the fact Michael Pratt is back. They were top 20 in rushing rate last year. And the Tulane defense didn't play it at all that high of a level. They were 70th in EPA per rush, 45th in EPA per pass. So not fantastic considering, they're not a Power 5 team with a Power 5 schedule. I think LaDamian Webb, the South Alabama running back, runs really well in this game. They only had 2 games the entire year last year where they didn't eclipse 100 rushing yards. So I love what they can do on the ground with some returning production back, a really strong defense, especially in their front 7. I think they give Tulane a lot of problems and cover this number and potentially flirt with a W here in week 1. Finally, something to keep you up late night into Sunday. It is Sam Houston State +20 against BYU. If you guys don't know this already, this is going to be something you might see on your TV before this game starts. Fantastic betting trend we have here that I'm going to ride with for teams that are playing in their first FBS game on the come up from the FCS. We saw Jacksonville State in week 0 beat UTEP. They have won FCS teams that make the move up to FBS have won 6 straight games outright in their first game of FBS action. And so I looked back even further. The last 10 years, there have been 8 teams that have made their debut from the FCS. In the FBS, they're 7-1 ATS. And BYU, an independent, a lot of people would probably see them as like potentially a group of 5 level of team before they make it now in their first year in the Big 12. They're actually 4-3 ATS in their first games against Power 5 opponents. So they're actually even a team that's been returning you some money here if you're betting on them, even against P5 team. So you love to see that. That's what I probably see a BYU team is. They're P5 now, but even as independent, they played a pretty strong schedule. For BYU, losing some production as well from last season 70th in returning production. Losing Jaron Hall, who was actually really, really good last year. Bring in Keaton Slovis, so it shouldn't be much of a drop-off. But the defense was terrible last year, and I think it's going to continue to be a problem. They were 177th in EPA against the pass, 113th in EPA against the run. And I think what I like about this matchup is the selling point for Sam Houston coming and making this move into the FBS, as their defense will be very strong still. Very good up front, a lot of guys back, and also a lot of athletic talent and guys with the size that can match up in this type of level of football. And that's, again, what I want to pay attention to when you're making this transition. And I think if you look at their numbers and how they performed last year, which wasn't all that great, that's not an indication of who this team is, which I like what they did. They actually redshirted a ton of guys last year in preparation for this transition to the FBS. So they get some talent back that they didn't have last year that they had years prior. So I like what this team can do in their first game back. This is a big number. It's tough to go on the road to Provo, don't get me wrong, but this is a lot of points, and the track record here of these teams is solid, so I'm going to ride with this betting trend. All right, 4 plays for you guys. If you guys are looking for any more, be sure to follow me on Twitter. I'll include my Twitter here somewhere on the screen. I'll definitely have some more plays throughout the week, but we'll be tracking how we do. Last season was very solid in both college football and college basketball. We expect to keep that thing going. If you guys enjoyed the video, would appreciate if you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.